Have you ever made the connection between the food co-op movement and women's empowerment? Well, tonight on the Goddess Power Show with Elizabeth Ann Atkins, we are going to talk all about that. Our guest is a retired food co-op marketing and outreach manager who is now on the board of directors for the Ashland Food Co-op in Ashland, Oregon. She's an amazing woman, Annie Hoy, here on the Goddess Power Show. Welcome, Annie.
Thank you so much for having me, Elizabeth Ann.
Oh,
I'm
you're so
excited to be
welcome.
here.
Thank you. So, the Goddess Power Show is all about showcasing trailblazing women who share their wisdom to help us all live bigger, better, and bolder by bossing up to the power we all have within. And you are doing that, Annie, because I have been to the Ashland Food Co-op and it's some of the best food I've ever eaten at your hot bar. And then the fresh produce is just absolute nirvana for plant people like myself. So kudos to you. Love what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
You're
It's a
welcome.
labor of love, and it's been around since 1972.
Wow, 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 wow. It's just so anybody watching, please go to Ashland, Oregon and go to the food co-op. The vibe is super just chill and happy, and the fresh produce makes you just feel so wonderful. It's all healthy stuff. The people are super friendly. So, what we're going to do tonight is explore the connection between the International Food Co-op movement and women's empowerment, which is what we're all about here on the Goddess Power Show. So, Annie, can you talk about how you got involved in the food co-op movement and also explain what it is and how big it is?
Well, it's the co-op movement in general. Food is just being one of the many sectors of co-ops. The food co-op movement really started during the activist times of the 60s and 70s. And many co-ops were predominantly, how should I say, started and supported by women because women were just coming into recognizing their own power.
Mhm.
And they were often the main shopper of the household. And it was a time when economic structures, the regular paradigm of a corporation-owned grocery store was falling away in favor of a kind of business that was owned and controlled by the people who use its services. A co-op, that's the basic definition of a co-op. And so a lot of women found that they could be leaders in food co-ops and do all the jobs that were traditionally male jobs, like stocking the shelves,
Mm.
unloading the truck, all of those, all of the jobs, including being general managers and department managers, uh, were were open for women because it was a whole alternative economy that was, uh, you know, not just the packaged conventional foods. You could get food in bulk. The organic movement was just starting, another movement that had a lot of powerful women in it. A lot of women farmers, they found their niche to be able to grow the good food for the food co-op.
I love that. That's awesome.
And one of the first distribution companies on the West Coast was formed by a group of queer women. And they
Wow.
were the truck drivers.
What? Oh
And
my
they were the ones
gosh.
that loaded the trucks and unloaded the trucks and packed the boxes and distributed them to food co-ops and natural food stores up and down the West Coast.
Wow. And
And
this was in the 60s?
in the 70s, yeah,
Oh, the
late 60s,
70s?
early 70s.
Okay.
So uh, I don't think women ever really had society's permission to drive trucks, especially long haul truck drivers,
Love that.
until this breakthrough in this distribution system, women owned, women run.
Wow, who knew? I've never heard of this. This is so awesome. So awesome. Okay. Wow. Okay, that is so exciting. I love that empowerment angle. Never heard of that. I've been to co-ops in different cities and really thrilled to learn this.
Well, I've been an empowered woman all my life
I
because
love
I
it.
didn't know anything different because I went to an all-girls school from first grade through 12th grade
Uh-huh.
and then to an all-women's college, junior college for 2 years.
Mhm.
And so it wasn't until I was a junior in college that I went to a school that had men in the classroom.
Wow. So can you talk about the shift that you might have felt in that experience? And first, how did the all-female experience in education empower you?
Well, we were a very small school, only 100 students, first grade through 12th grade.
Mhm.
So we got a lot of individual attention.
Oh, okay.
And we were encouraged to be academic, to do research, I mean, we also had home ec, where you learned how to cook and you learned how to sew. But
Mhm.
mostly we had, you know, everyone in there was there to excel. And because it was small, we were a very tight knit group. And so I never knew that I wasn't supposed to be uh, a shrinking violet in the classroom and let the
Mm.
boys answer all the questions.
Oh, I love
I,
it.
I never had that experience until,
Mm.
again, I was a junior in college. And by then, the women's movement was full blown, and I was involved with the Women's Center at University of Oregon and finished out my degree there. And it took me a while, but because I was having a lot of fun being a powerful woman. And honestly, my mom, she took no guff from men.
Oh,
She
really?
was the ruler of the house,
Uh-huh.
and my dad's job was to go out and make the money, and it was her job to spend it and to do everything, make all the other decisions. So
Mhm.
she really held the purse strings and
Uh-huh.
ruled everything. And she always told me, you should never feel less than a man.
Oh, I love that. Love it, love it, love it. Awesome.
And my grandmother told her that. So, it was
Wow.
has been a generational thing. And I
Mhm.
told that to my two daughters. So they
Oh,
too are very empowered people.
that is so cool. So, so cool. And so then when you did have a classroom that had male students in it, you were just in your power and it wasn't an issue. Is that correct?
Yeah, it felt like that. It didn't feel like I had to change who I was because I was kind of bossy
Mhm.
anyway. Um, so I just bossed him around.
I love it. That is so cool, Annie. So, let's talk a little bit more about the co-op movement because this is a
Okay.
place where you can be on full blast with your power and your mission to help people and have women's empowerment on flex. So, what is the solidarity economy?
So the solidarity economy is made up of cooperatives in every economic sector. Often it's referred to as worker-owned co-ops.
Mhm.
So there is a drive right now for companies with retiring owners to turn their company over to their workers so that it is cooperatively owned by the workers, owned and controlled by the workers, and that is in solidarity. So that is a major feature of the solidarity economy. So any kind of business that is worker owned or a consumer owned, that is a cooperative, um, is part of that idea of the power is in both the people who use the company services and the people who run the company services.
So that's the benefit that the power is shared. It's not one CEO telling everybody what to do and making all the decisions. It's a communal type experience, right?
Right. And it's a democratically owned owned and controlled enterprise. So you have a board of directors,
Mm-hmm.
and they hold the ultimate fiduciary responsibility for the business.
Mm-hmm.
And they're made up of people who use the co-op, right? So we'll just take a food co-op as an example.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a board of directors. You have to be a co-op owner to be on the board. A co-op owner, to be an owner of the co-op, you make an equity investment of $100. Everybody makes only $100 investment.
Mm-hmm.
In a big corporation, when you're out buying stock in a company, you can buy as many shares as you want.
Uh-huh.
But in a co-op, you only get one share.
Oh. And do you profit from that?
Yes, because the profits are shared at the end of the year. If the business makes any profit, because we are not a nonprofit entity, but we don't worship profit.
Mm.
If we make some, that's good, because we'd like to be able to give some back.
Mm-hmm.
So in a food co-op, at the end of the year, if the food co-op has made some profit, then it is the board decides how much to retain for the business and how much to distribute to the owners. And what you get is based on how much you use the co-op. So the more you
Oh.
use your co-op, the more benefit you get back.
Oh, I love it. So let's talk about what you offer at the co-op besides the hot food, cold food bar, the fresh produce, the healthy different things you have down the aisles. What do you offer? Like, what's the range of services?
So, food co ops and natural food stores were formed out of this need for better, healthier, non processed foods. So, our food co op happens to be a certified organic co op, which
Mhm.
means that not only is the food that we carry certified organic, so by the USDA, but also all of our operations follow the same guidelines when it comes to chemical use, cleaning products,
Love that.
how the food moves from the truck to the back room and out onto the floor. So we have to follow all the same regulations and rules as uh, an organic farmer has to.
Wow.
So from the farm, so when you see organic food on our shelves, you know that from the farm to the distributor to the back loading dock to the shelves has all used the same organic protocol so that there's no contamination.
Oh
And
my
that's
goodness.
important for people who, it's a legal thing now. Organic used to just be, well, yeah, okay, it's organic. But now there's an actual standard and there's laws around it.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. So I think the reason the food there tastes so good is because you can taste the love, you can taste the mission in it. It's like such high vibe energy. The food literally tastes better. I'm telling you, I had chicken wings and greens at your deli. I was on cloud nine, and you had the outdoor eating space. So it seems like a gathering space. It seems like a place where you just go to support this mission. And it's also a place where you can go home with bags full of wonderful natural foods. It's just awesome. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I heard that co-ops are based on an international set of principles and values.
That is correct. So, a cooperative is considered to be an autonomous association of persons voluntarily united to meet their common economic, social, and cultural needs and aspirations through this jointly owned, democratically controlled enterprise. So,
Mm.
that can be a food co op, that can be a farmer's co op, that can be like a Ace Hardware is a purchasing co-op. I bet you didn't know that.
I didn't. That's fascinating.
Um, a credit union is a depositor-owned bank.
Mm.
So instead of being Bank of America that is ruled by a gigantic corporation that who knows what they do with their profits,
Mm-hmm.
maybe they fund war. We don't necessarily know. But in a credit
Oh.
union, you own the bank.
Oh,
The
interesting.
depositors own the bank,
Mm-hmm.
and they run the bank because they sit on the board of directors.
Fascinating. So you were saying this whole co-op movement is part of an alternative economy that is not based on war, which of course grew out of the 60s. Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was while co-ops have been around forever, the first co-ops were a, a little more loosely affiliated with each other, like buying clubs, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But we trace our roots back to Rochdale, England, where uh, there was during when I have to get this right. Uh, the first the first co-op was made up of people who worked in the textile industry, in the
Mm.
cotton gins,
Okay. In
were
England?
in England.
Okay.
And that became a worker. Well, they started the first food co-op. Their first co-op was a food co-op.
Mm-hmm.
We call them the Rochdale Pioneers.
Okay.
And because during that time workers were exploited
Oh.
and they could only buy their food from the company store, and the
Mm-hmm.
company store was out to make profit, not to just break even. And
Mm-hmm.
so they charged the workers, they overcharged the workers because they could.
Oh.
And these workers were not making all that much money.
Mm.
So the pioneers decided that, based on a lot of more liberal thought that was going on at the time, we're talking about like 1869 or something, that they would start their own food co-op. They would own it collectively, each put in the same amount of money to rent the space, and then they went out and they had pooled their resources and they bought food for the shelves. And that little store was the first food co-op that we know of.
Wow.
And word of that food co-op traveled across to the southern United States, where the cotton was being grown that was being shipped off to Britain to be in the textile mills.
Oh, fascinating.
And
Wow.
who picked the cotton? Black people. And so those slaves started their own co-ops as well. And so lots of people think that food co-ops were started by hippies in the 70s, but the first food co-ops in America were started by slaves who
So,
knew about the Rochdale Pioneers because of that economic pipeline between the cotton that they picked and where it went.
so how did enslaved Black people in the South have the resources to do that and the autonomy?
Well, they had autonomy because they could form a buying club, which is mostly what it was, or they could. Well, one of the first co-ops was around. Well, it was around food, and so each person had a garden, and they could
Oh,
supply the co-op, and it was a sharing economy.
I love that so much. Wow.
And when they learned about the values of a co-op from those Rochdale pioneers, those were the values of self-help
Mm-hmm.
and self-responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
They learned about democracy, equality, equity, and most importantly, solidarity. So as time went on and the slaves were freed, then that during Reconstruction is when you really saw a lot of food co-ops start up.
That's beautiful. I just love that. That's really great. That's awesome. Thank you for that. Another fascinating angle of the food co-op history here. Empowerment of Black people as well. That's really awesome, Annie. Thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
So, when someone wants to go to the food co-op in their city, and you said there's hundreds of them across the United States and thousands around the world, correct?
Yes.
hmm Do you have to be a member of the co-op, or are there benefits or if you are a member?
So you don't have to be a member to shop,
hmm
but if you make that equity investment and become a member, then you're entitled to that patronage dividend at the end of the year.
Okay.
And you become a co-owner of a business in your community. So
Oh.
you are part then of that solidarity
Mm.
economy. And
Wow.
because of that, you can run for the board
hmm
and be part of the governance of the organization.
hmm
As an owner, when you make a suggestion, you have just a little bit more clout in what
Oh,
you're saying
okay.
because you own it. I mean, one of the big things that we say in the food co-op movement is we own it. And that's what we're trying to
Oh.
make sure that our shoppers who have made their equity investment know that we own it. We own it collectively. We govern it collectively, and it's ours. It's a
Mm.
community owned based in our population. And we can do a better job, I think, of meeting the needs of our community.
hmm hmm So I know you encourage people to support and shop at co-ops and also participate in the ways you just described, but also to start their own. What is that process like?
So, the process of starting a co op can be long and arduous, but greatly fulfilling.
hmm
So, let's say, well, let's see, let me think about which kind of co op we want. Well, let's just try a food co op. What the
hmm
heck? All
Yes.
right. So let's say in your community, the main grocery store is many miles away. You live in a rural community. Let's say you live in the desert Southwest and you have to drive many miles to the bigger town in order to do your shopping. One of the first things you could do is form a buying club, which is a rudimentary form of a food co-op. So, oh, I'm going to totally change this because now I'm thinking about my friend up in Alaska.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so they're trying to start their food co-op and they have
Okay.
done just this because they're serving people that live out in on all the little islands,
Mm.
right?
Uh-huh.
And so they started a buying club, and once a month, the big barge comes in. They've made their orders,
hmm
and the big barge comes in, and there's a warehouse right there, and volunteers from all of these little places that are part of the buying club
Uh-huh.
come and they offload the barge with all the
Wow.
cases of food
Uh-huh.
and the containers, and then they all of these are volunteers, and they unpack all of those and create in this warehouse their store.
Oh,
And then
wow.
everybody comes
Uh-huh.
and they've already pre-ordered all their food, right?
hmm
And so they come to pick it up. And
Wow.
so everybody's order is, they have their little checklist, and here's the case with all the cereal in it and all, the 5 kinds of cereal. Oh, you get 5 boxes, you get one, that
Uh-huh.
it's all divvied up according to
Uh-huh.
what your order was.
Uh-huh.
And think of the community that that builds in a very remote place where you
Mm.
might not see these people except once a month when you come to collect your food.
That is so cool. I love that. Wow.
So the
Wow.
ultimate aim is that they would have a permanent storefront where you wouldn't have to wait once a month. You could come anytime
Mm-hmm.
and shop at your co-op.
Mm-hmm. Wow, I love it. That's awesome. So if people want to shop at their co-op in their town, they should just do an online search for closest co-op to me or something like that.
Yeah,
Is that
yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Okay. And then just go there and explore. And if it's anything like when I walked into yours, I mean, I remember the purple cabbage was so beautiful and all the colors of the fresh produce. You can tell I love plant food, but and then you had like the aisles with the different cereals and nuts and like vitamins and different kinds of drinks, not alcohol, but like just different beverages. And the hummus was ridiculously good. Oh my gosh.
Elizabeth, we started out just like that budding co-op in Alaska.
Really?
So Ashland Food Co-op was started by a group of families who were dissatisfied with their inability to get brown rice at the local supermarket.
Wow.
So somebody knew about this group of women who had the food that they distributed, right?
Uh-huh.
And they uh, came together collectively and ordered, 50-pound bags of brown rice,
Wow.
50-pound bags of whole wheat flour,
Uh-huh.
50-pound bags of oats,
Uh-huh.
etc., drums of oil, cooking
Mm.
oil,
Mm-hmm.
sugar, spices, in bulk.
Uh-huh.
And then when the truck came, they would offload it in somebody's driveway, and everybody would come and they'd say, okay, well, they have a scale and say, okay, well, I ordered 5 pounds of brown rice. And so
What?
they divvy it up. Here's my 5 pounds of brown rice. Here's my 5 pounds of oats. Here's my whole wheat flour, etc. A case of garbanzo beans, a case of tomato sauce. Oh, I only wanted 5 cans,
Mm-hmm.
and so that they divvied it all up and the families went away, and that grew and grew until it outgrew the garage and the driveway. And that's when they bought a little or rented a little storefront in downtown Ashland, where they
Wow.
then had barrels of whole wheat flour and
Mm.
barrels of rolled oats and
Mm.
sugar and spices and all of that. And then you would just buy it by the pound. You didn't have to
Wow.
order it in bulk. It was in the store ordered it in bulk, and you did that
Mm.
collectively. And then you just went in and shopped.
Wow, that's awesome. That is such a great story. I
And
love it.
that is how, it was everywhere in America. Pretty much every food co-op that was formed in the 70s has exactly the same story. In fact,
Wow.
at a conference one time, we did this thing where we had 10 different co-ops together, and each person would go around and say, my co-op was started in 1972 by a group of families who, and then the next person said, wanted brown rice
Oh, I love
and
it.
organic vegetables. And the next one
Oh,
would say, and it told the whole story from all the different perspectives of co-ops across the country.
that's I love it.
And
That's
this is going on in Peru. I'm working with a group in
oh,
Peru that
uh-huh.
are at the buying club stage, and they just did their big bulk buy
Mm-hmm.
and distributed it to their first owners.
Wow, that is so awesome, Annie. Wow. Wow. So what's your favorite thing about the whole co-op experience that you have?
Oh, my favorite thing. I just love everything about co-ops. I love the
Oh.
solidarity. I love that it's people powered. I love that it's values based.
Mhm.
Um, I I love that there's there's such a high degree of independence. Maybe it's that, rugged individualism,
Mhm.
but it's the rugged individualism that then is melded with other rugged individuals in
Uh-huh.
order to have a greater impact.
Oh, I
And I
love
like
it.
that solidarity, that you can get things done together
Mhm.
easier than you can individually,
Mhm.
and that by working together, your dreams can come true. If you can
Oh,
find the compadres to join you on your quest, the greater the likelihood that you'll make it. And I
I
love
love
that it's principle driven,
Uh-huh.
that that community is at the heart of all
Mhm.
co-ops. Without the
Mm.
community, a co-op couldn't exist.
Mhm.
And and that's one of the main principles. I like that it's based on education. There's a lot of training that goes on. Ashland Food Co-op and co-ops all over the country have culinary programs where they teach people how to cook.
Wow.
Maybe you're right on your first the beginning of your journey of using natural foods instead of
Mhm.
regular supermarket foods,
Mhm.
conventional foods, and you don't really know how to cook brown rice. There'll be a
Mm.
class that says Introduction to Cooking Whole Grains.
Oh, wow.
So
So
that's
you
part of the education, information, and training. That is one of the co-op principles.
Oh, that's fascinating. I didn't know that.
And
So
co-ops all work together, whether you're food co-ops working together or co-ops from different economic sectors, we all work together. And that's the sixth principle, cooperation among cooperatives. So we all hold each other up and cooperate together. We really feel that we can work together through national, local, international groups in order to elevate co-ops in the mind of people so that and an example of that in Ashland is that, well, and all over the United States, is that food co-ops have formed a co-op of food co-ops. And that co-op of co-ops negotiates it increases our buying power because it negotiates prices with vendors,
Mhm.
not just as one store, but as 150 stores. So
Wow.
that gives greater buying power,
Uh-huh.
and it makes it so that our individual consumers also get a better deal because we pass it all the way down from the co-op to the co-op to the co-op members.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. Wow, Annie. Is there anything, one last thing you'd like to share about co-ops that people need to know, especially in relation to women's empowerment?
You'll always be able to find a job at a co-op if you're a woman. A lot of co-ops
Oh,
have women in the highest positions.
uh-huh.
Uh, it's just part of the DNA
Wow.
of co-ops, especially food co-ops, but also credit
Wow.
unions or agricultural unions.
Uh-huh.
Women have always been empowered in this so-called solidarity economy. And new on the horizon right now are a lot of women-owned caregiver co-ops, women-owned housekeeper co-ops, where it's those are worker co-ops. So housekeepers, caregivers have come together to form their own co-ops to empower themselves as women and to have a shared business.
That's amazing. That is remarkable. That is
And
so
you know,
important. Mhm.
caregivers can be pretty low paid.
Mhm. Mhm.
So this is an opportunity for them to empower themselves and to collectively transform their living situations by
Beautiful.
commanding a better uh, rate for their work.
Oh, Annie, this is so fascinating. You have really, really shed so much light on the whole co-op experience, the history, the benefits. So I encourage anybody watching, please support your local co-op because if it's anything like the Ashland Food Co-op in Oregon, you are going to be delighted from the moment you walk in, shop, take it home, cook, eat, whatever. It's awesome. Beautiful.
Elizabeth, thank you so much for your interest in co-ops. And as you can tell, I love everything that has to do with the cooperative model.
You're
And
welcome.
I just want to, I know that we all have to-do lists, right?
Mhm.
And I wrote myself a note. And when I looked at it again, I thought I said, keep laughing at your to-do list.
Keep
And I
laughing at
thought, what? What did I mean? But no, it said, keep laughing on your to-do list.
Oh, yay! I love that. So awesome. Woohoo! Keep laughing on your to-do list. That is
I will leave you with that.
that was awesome. We all need more laughter in our lives. Oh my gosh. The more we laugh, the better. So thank you for that, Annie Hoy of the Ashland Food Co-op Board of Directors. We appreciate you immensely for sharing your wisdom tonight. I learned so much. So now everybody watching has a better understanding of the food co-op movement as well as the history that's rooted in women's empowerment. So thank you very much, Annie Hoy.
You're so welcome, Elizabeth.
And thank you, all of you, for joining us here on the Goddess Power Show, where you got to meet Annie Hoy and learn all about the food co op movement and its connection to women's empowerment. So, I'm Elizabeth Ann Atkins. I'm so grateful that you joined us here. Please do give us a thumbs up to like the video, subscribe to the channel. You can also follow me on Twitter at Elizabeth Atkins. And remember, boss up, goddess. You have the power. I'll see you next time.